Hello, this is Miss Schrader. Today we are going to be discussing feudalism, which is a very difficult subject for most of us to understand in the modern era. My students, you'll need a piece of paper and something to write with so you can take some notes. When you're done, you are giving me 5 complete sentences on the subject matter. You're going to give me a strong introduction, then at least 3 facts, and a conclusion. You can write that in a Google Doc or on your piece of paper. Okay, let's get started. All right, so feudalism is the government system used in Europe between the 9th and the 15th centuries. Land was given to people in exchange for service or loyalty. The king owned all the land. He gave some to the knights, to the lords, and the peasants. They promised to support the king in war or to provide him with food grown on the land. Lords might give land to knights and peasants who then owed the lord their loyalty and food. If the king went to war, he could call on his lords and knights to go with him. If the kingdom was attacked, the farmers would run into the castle for protection, and the knights would run out to protect the castle. All right, so if you take a look at this picture, you can get an idea of it. So the king is at the top. He has all of the power. He has all of the land. Um, if he is going to go to war with someone, he is going to need um, soldiers. He's going to need leaders for those soldiers. So he's giving the land to his various knights and lords. They are referred to as vassals. They, in turn, are giving land to their vassals, who are peasants, who are called serfs. The peasants pay the lords in rent and in food and in service. The lords pay the king in rent and service and food. Now, most people get confused concerning serfs because they think about slaves and they wonder if these people are enslaved. There is a difference. If you are a serf, they can't buy and sell you, they can't send you to live someplace else. You literally belong to the land. And so you stay working on that land indefinitely. So you can't be sent to someplace else. You also really are free by your freedom. They were living in a period in which there was really very little in the way of coin money. Everything was traded according to a system of exchange. So they are trading their labor for the land that they get to work on and for their security. And you can see some of them there working. There is someone instructing them, basically telling them they need to work harder. Um, Not only are they growing food for their lord or their king, but they are growing food to feed themselves as well. Now, kings and lords would give land to their knights or their lords, and the lords and the knights would then swear allegiance to whoever their lord is, as is being shown in this picture. Normally, the king would have their person, the vassal, kneel down. He'd take his sword, he'd tap it on their shoulders and say, I promise to give you this land. The vassal would then say, I promise to be your liege man, which means that they are going to swear allegiance. They are going to follow their leader, their lord, or their king in war and things like that. Now, there have been lots of questions when students ask me, well, what happens if you don't do that when the time comes? What if you tell your lord that you're not going to go? Basically, one of two things can happen. Your lord can then kill you, take your land and give it to one of his other vassals, or you might rise up against your lord and kill him and take his land. Normally, it was the lord killing the vassal, but not always. Now, this diagram is a lot simpler than the one we saw earlier. The king is granting lands to his barons, the barons are granting land to the knights are granting land to something called villeins, which is basically the serf. In return, you notice that they are providing him with service and protection, or with service and food and things like that. Now, this picture is from the Bayeux Tapestry, and it shows Harold Godwinson, who is a claimant for the throne of England, having to swear allegiance to William the Conqueror. William is on the left and Harold is on the right. Harold is being forced against his will at this time to put his hand on a coffin full of the bones of saints and swear his allegiance to William. He will be William's man. So he is William's vassal now. And theoretically, when the time comes and someone gets to become King of England, he must support William in becoming king instead of becoming king himself. When the time came, because Harold was in England at the time, he seized the throne, and William felt, of course, he was cheating for this reason here. And so we have a war in which William eventually kills Harold and William becomes king. Another issue that existed in this system dealt with the relationship between the Roman Catholic Church, which was the only church in Europe at that time, and those kings who had so much power. The big question, of course, being who had the greatest power? Was it the king or was it the pope? And they go round and round and round. There's lots of different times when the king has more power, lots of times when the pope has more power. In the picture that you're looking at, you can see that they're kind of facing each other, and there are quite often quarrels. If the king is a powerful enough king and controls the land, then he's going to be giving land to the bishops, to the church that is local, and they are going to be his vassals. They promise loyalty to him. On the other hand, the Pope will frequently call on the kings to help him with an issue and basically suggest you are the vassals of the Lord. That means you are vassals to me and you have to support me in my efforts. Now, a castle is the main thing in medieval feudal Europe. You couldn't really have feudalism if you didn't have a castle. The sole purpose of a castle at that time was protection. You put all the important things that you need to keep safe in the castle. So, one of the main things you're going to have in your castle is a water source so you can have fresh water. Your farmers are out farming, your knights are keeping an eye on things, and you are about to be attacked. The farmers rush into the castle, the knights and the lord rush out of the castle doors are shut, and the knights and the lords fight with the people who are attacking. Hopefully, the people who are attacking aren't even going to get close enough to the castle to actually attack it. But everything about the castle is built to make sure that people don't get in if they aren't supposed to. And if they do get in, they'll be killed quickly. So the farmers, one of the things that they get from the knights and the lords and the kings is that protection. Eventually, as time went along, the serfs, the peasants, found that they had a surplus of food and they could take them into these small towns and trade their food for other goods. And so certain people began to specialize in certain things that they could trade and started having trade markets. Because of this, this weakened the feudalism system, which then slowly began to die out. Now, what most people don't realize is that feudalism took a long time to die out. In some places, it continued to exist well into the 19th century. So that's only about 150 years ago. But for the most part, it started dying out. And eventually, when we leave the Middle Ages, it has ceased to exist. All right, my students, you are giving me 5 sentences about what you have learned about medieval European feudalism. Hopefully, you're going to be able to explain to me what it was and how it worked. You can do this on a Google Doc or on your piece of paper, and I hope that you enjoyed this. This has been a wee video on 7th grade medieval European feudalism.